What's up, everybody? Josh here. Just wanted to take a quick second to tell you about one of our favorite companies to utilize during that pre-rut and rut time frame, and that is Brush Creek Monsters, LLC. Brush Creek Monsters is a family-owned and operated business. They are a no BS company, and one of our favorite things about them is they try and keep all of their scent products as natural as they can be. They have natural scrape vines that they will hang with their deer herd to let the bucks and does utilize them, and then they will ship them out to you quickly. They have a very precise process for collecting their doe estrus. There are no additives, and quite frankly, that's some of the fastest turnaround time I've ever had on doe estrus. I've received doe estrus that was collected the day before, so if that isn't fresh, I don't know what fresh is. Now, like I said, they're a family-owned and operated business, and they come in high demand. So if you are wanting any other products, I recommend getting with them sooner rather than later. Check them out at brushcreekmonstersllc.com. That is brushcreekmonstersllc.com. Peep rotation. There's nothing more frustrating than pulling your bow back on a nice buck only to not be able to see your pins clearly because your peep is rotated. This is something that I've personally experienced in the field, and I know Chris and Rick both have as well. In order to reduce this risk, we only pick high-quality bowstrings to put on our bows. That is why this season we have partnered up with Hooked Up Bowstrings. If you are looking for a high-quality string to help get you through the season, look no further than Hooked Up. Matt, the owner, is a fantastic guy. He is an accomplished competition archer and an accomplished hunter in the woods. You can visit his website at hookedupbowstrings.com. Use the code MOBILEHUNTER10. That's MOBILEHUNTER, the number 10, in order to get 10% off your order.
Hey guys, Rick here from the Mobile Hunter Podcast, and I'm here to tell you about one of our sponsors, Sadie's LLC, Custom Ammunition and Gun Works. Aaron Satterfield and his family have been turning out some awesome game loads that have been putting down deer, waterfowl, and turkey all year long. The Sadie's Fatty, the turkey load that we use, can stop a bird dead in its tracks. Check them out at saddiesllc.com. That's SATTIES LLC.com, or on Facebook at Sadie's LLC, and tell them the Mobile Hunter Podcast sent you.
Welcome to the Mobile Hunter Podcast. Our mission is simple. We want to help you become a better hunter. We believe that mobility kills and efficiency will set you free.
Happy Wednesday, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Wild Calling Wednesdays. We have got a story of extreme perseverance today. We've got on a guy I actually just met not that long ago. I've checked out a lot of his social media, Chasing Public. This guy, his name's Vince Battiata. He is a hard-working dude. Just actually beforehand, come to find out, we are mutual friends through Matt Lair as well. And, man, it's amazing the way that people connect through these expos in the hunting industry in general. And that would probably be the main positive thing I take away from all of it. But Vince, I'm honored to have you on today. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. I appreciate you reaching out. And I know we just chatted for a few minutes right before we got on here. And yeah, I can already tell, yeah, man, you're good people and happy to be here, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm never one guy, and I told you before the podcast, I'm never one guy to front and act like we've been talking for years and stuff. And absolutely. I want people to know that it's okay to have these long, in-depth conversations and tell some campfire stories with people that you don't really know all that well. But, man, you can kind of just tell pretty quickly from outside appearances who is exactly how they represent themselves. And the way the content on your YouTube channel and on your Instagram and stuff is oriented is just real raw and as it comes to you. And, you know, you do some good editing and stuff and you put it together and you put some effort into it, but really you're not doing something to make yourself seem anything other than who you are. And I think that this podcast is going to echo that theme extremely well. Like you're really, what we have in a preview here is just a lot of trial and tribulation. And you've kept a positive attitude. You've kept grinding through all of it. You know, every time we've talked, it sounded like you've had a smile on your face every single time. And man, it's just, you're one of those guys that I can't help but root for constantly. So it's really my pleasure to be able to have you on here and allow people to hear some of your story.
I appreciate it, man. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, man, I appreciate the kind words. That's very genuine. But just to echo what you said a little bit, yeah. A little bit about me. I'm 37. I'm a dad. I'm a husband. I got a new little baby boy. We call him Mini Vinny. Yeah, my wife and I wanted to name him after myself as well, which is kind of funny. But anyway, yeah, no, just to echo, what you said. I've been in and around the industry, I guess you would say, for a handful of years now. I definitely don't hang around to try to get sponsors or influence or anything like that. I genuinely just love hunting so much. It's such a big piece of my core that I would have no idea where I would be without it. And it's taken me a long time to understand why it was so important to my stepdad, who taught me from the very beginning, who's now, passed, rest his soul. But it's just something that I love. My wife loves. It's in my household. It's never going to leave. And I think it's important to be real and raw and not fake it. There's always great success stories. There's but the biggest successes come out of the biggest failures, and that's the only way to get to the end. But we just love hunting, man. It's fantastic. There's no way. I can't really put it any other way. There's no fluff. Like, I love hunting. I love public hunting. I love, the harder it is, the more I love it.
And I heard, this reminds me of some stuff that I've heard recently, and I've tried to live by recently with the struggles I've had in Nebraska this season. 2 weeks ago, I've heard this saying, "What punishments of God are not also gifts?" As in, yeah, all the trial and tribulation, the difficulties you go through, it is an absolute blessing to just exist. Being alive is such a gift and a statistical anomaly outright that you can't have that gift without all the suffering that goes with it. So I have deferred a lot of the woe is me kind of attitude through that, and just felt so blessed, like, these last 2 weeks, to just be around and be able to talk to the people I am, meet the people I am, and do what I do. And it makes me so happy that I'm allowed to live and live the life that I 95% of the time want to, and that is, I mean, when I come to this realization, I got emotional thinking about it. I called my dad.
Man, you're starting to make me emotional.
I called my dad after this failed hunt. Man, it'll be shown in my video. I try not to tear up here, but, like, I met this guy after I had just an amazing stalk on this giant deer. I got within 50 yards of him, and a side-by-side drove off of the private land and spooked him up. And I didn't know what happened at the time, but I reviewed the footage and found this out way after this. But I've never wanted to give up on hunting. Like, I never would ever leave a hunt, ever. I love it too much, but I was so angry at myself because I thought I'd screwed it up in some way, and I was confused and mad. And I'm 3 miles back on this public land, and a bird hunter in a blue t-shirt comes down the hill with his dog. And it's just like, he's like 63, 65 years old. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, and he's like walking right next to my camera gear. So I flag him down. I go talk to him. Long story short, this guy's got a picture of a kid in a wheelchair with a fishing rod on his t-shirt. And so we get to talking. I find out he's at the same campground as me. And I was like, you know what? Like, I'll be a bird dog for you. I'll push birds for you, and we'll walk back. And he's like, you sure? I don't want to bust out your ears. Like, no, like, let's go through here. And I saw a grouse here earlier. Like, let's go push that grouse up, and let's, maybe I'll get some video for you and stuff. I get to talk to him. The kid in the wheelchair and his t-shirt is a little cartoon, but what it really was is his son. His son, I think it was 11 years ago, got in a car crash and got paralyzed from the chest down. And, like, there's a lot of stuff that's happened with me personally, and it's the reason my channel is called The Wild Calling, and it's a story for another day. But that kid must have come to the end of his wits, and every single day he finds a way to hunt or fish.
Wow.
And just persevered at the highest level. And I'm over here crying about a deer that I just screwed up on with my legs walking 3 miles in and 3 miles out. Like not to comparative suffer myself away, but what a blessing it was to meet that guy at that point in time in a place that neither of us should have been. And for him to see the example of someone in a younger age pushing the way that his son has always wanted to, like that is, I think that we met through a blessing at that point in time. And I've come away with just such a different perspective on what it means to suffer and how much of a gift it truthfully is to suffer. And
that's, I mean, man, that's, I love hearing that come from you, Jake. I know I'm a little bit older than you, not a ton, but the fact that you've even learned and taken that in, like even at your age is fantastic, because it takes some people never get it. There's so much noise and commotion in the world that time just slips by, and they, get to the end and it's a pile of regret. You know what I mean? So yeah, I'm right there with you, man. You got to live every day like it's your last, and you got to be appreciative for what you have, whether it's a lot or a little, but it's yours, right? And own it.
And I think that's I think it's not necessarily a coincidence that I reached out to you on the way to this trip to Nebraska. And you're the one guy that I've reached out to that has had stories, but your emphasis was on the stuff you pushed through rather than, a lot of guys, they have that along the way, but it ends in redemption, right? And it ends in this crazy, happening at the end. But you're like this dude that's so focused on the path and the journey and pushing through these obstacles, which are incredibly unique. I'll say it's not like you just missed a deer or something. Like we have a lot to cover here, but it's an example that I want to resonate through my life. And I have a lot of suffering to go. I have a lot of things that are going to go wrong to me, but I selfishly really value this perspective that you're going to give me throughout your stories here. And I really think it's an awesome lesson for our listeners to take in. And to your point, especially the young ones that maybe have not gone through this yet, but when they arrive to those obstacles, that they understand that those two are gifts.
Sure. Yeah, man. Yeah, I guess just to echo what you're saying for everyone listening, me and Jacob kind of came to the agreement that I just, we all like to hunt. We all like to punch tags. We all like to go after big deer or take any deer, right? Venison's delicious. Like, right. We get it. Hunting's hunting. We like to chase whitetails. We love it all. But in my eyes, I've always viewed bow hunting, and I believe I actually heard this from Mark Drury at one point many years ago, but whitetail hunting is 95% failure, and then it's like 4% learning and then 1% success. And I've always kind of like taken that with me, and then it eventually translated into scout 90% and hunt 10%, because it kind of equals out there. But yeah, you have to enjoy the path and take what you can take and learn what you can learn along the way, and then not make that mistake again. Always have your goal super high. Don't ever cut yourself short. Hopefully it's super high and you fall short and you land right where you want. But yeah, so yeah, we came to the agreement that we wanted to talk about the shit that happens to you.
That is it, man, right there.
Yeah, I got a couple different stories, or a few different stories that's happened to me, and this has all happened to me just in the last 3 years, and this is just like 3 or 4 stories. I have much more, but these are the ones that kind of stick out.
Let's touch on that Kansas trip number 1. I mean, well, first, just give a tiny bit of your background, like where you're from and stuff, because I want people to be familiar with you.
Sure. Yeah. So, I'm 37 years old. Like I said, I'm a dad. I'm a husband. I've been hunting since I was 12. I had a huge break from 19 until about 31 or 30. Yeah. So I've been bow hunting now for the last 6 to 7 years. I didn't get into bow hunting until I was an adult. I got into it after my stepdad passed and grew up, just your traditional shotgun method. Hey, sit here. If it's brown, it's down type of deal, just like a lot of other people. But as I got older, I wanted to get back into hunting, but I just found gun hunting to be boring. I just wanted to be really close, and I wanted to just have some type of challenge, and jumped into it full steam, and the rest is history. If I can get some free permission, I'll hunt the crap out of it. I usually don't waste my time even trying to get that anymore, unless I have a really good reason to be there. Other than that, I love to hunt public ground. Yeah, I love the challenge. I'm to the point now where I'm very confident in wherever I go. You can drop me in any of the Midwest states, and I'm going to find the biggest one there. So that's kind of where I'm at. I can find them. I can get them in front of me. It's just been some human error multiple times, and not capitalizing. I think the difference between me at this point and some of the elite guys I would call them, or I look to, is the fact that they've been able to capitalize on some of those moments, and I haven't. So that's kind of where I view myself. Regardless of how everybody else views me. So that's a little bit about myself.
Yeah, and I would say like that is not an uncommon theme. Like there's like I think it was Roger Federer broke down like his percentage of success and everything like that. And across all of his wins and losses, he won like 54% of the points in his professional career, which is insane. Like to think that he 4% edged his opponents. And it was just that one thing, that one bit of execution across so many different points and sets, then he was able to win. And I think that a lot of people that aren't, getting invited onto podcasts and whatever people think is the measure of success or making it, which I'll tell you right now, that's garbage. I think they're so much closer to the people that they put on a pedestal than they understand.
For sure.
And I think that that's the last thing they should be focusing on. But I think that you should be encouraged by the things that you can control and not discouraged by the things you can't. And you can control how you react to failure, and you can control how you elevate someone else, but really just be excited about what you have going on and love it for a reason other than the success, which you obviously do. And I appreciate that you put up content for it as well, because I want that message in every way possible, shown to people. So again,
sure.
Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah, I wish I had more time to put out more content. It's just it's a very busy time.
Yeah, but you got to prioritize the right things in life for sure.
Yeah, man. It's just family first.
Yeah. Well, let's dive into Kansas trip number 1. For you guys that are listening, like we got quite a few things to cover, and we'll just cover them in order. I don't want to give too much of a preview of all this stuff because who knows what we'll get to. But what year is this when you're starting in Kansas here?
Okay, so Kansas trip number 1. So I got two stories on Kansas, and it's kind of a few stories within those stories. But the very first time I went to Kansas, I want to say it was either 2020. It had to be 2020 or 2019, somewhere in there. It could have even been 2021. Time's flying by, man. Like ever since I got married and then my wife got pregnant, like just time just doesn't even exist. So I just like memories are just fading. But yeah, it had to be like 2020, maybe 2019, somewhere in there. But so I took a road trip, packed up the truck, headed out to Kansas, and I was going to go out there for a week and a half, 2 weeks. And long story short, I'll get into the details, but the long story short is I ended up missing $3 in 3 days. Like the very it was the second, third, and fourth day that I was there. But the second day I was there, it was literally like the most perfect scenario that you could ask for as a bow hunter. Like it was easy access, there was tons of bedding, there was great food, like good cover, my stand location was great, like the wind setup, the thermals were fantastic, and like but it also kind of threw me for a loop because where I needed to be set up, like the does would just not ever leave there. And so I do this thing where it's called like a soft bump. Like I kind of make a little bit of noise as I'm coming in, and it's worked for me so many times where they just kind of bound off a little bit, and I'll get set up, and then they come back and everything's fine. So the second night, I had seen this deer from the side of the road, and to paint a picture of this deer, He's a mainframe 8. I come to find out he ends up scoring 174 in 3/8. Phenomenal deer. I'll send you a picture of
On a
it.
mainframe 8.
It's humongous, Jacob.
Oh my
I've never
God.
seen another deer like that. Like, and I only know that he scored that because where I was hunting, a friend of mine's nephew ended up finding him, and they were able to score him. And it was that deer. There was only one in the area, and supposedly I was the only one that had ever actually had an encounter with him in person and had an actual shot on him, and I messed it up.
Well,
And,
I mean, if you had found a second mainframe 8 at 170 plus inches, I'd be asking you for coordinates and holding you hostage.
yeah, it was a lot of the locals knew about the deer, and there was some that didn't really want me to hunt in that area. But how this played out, I didn't see a deer all evening, and it was getting down to that last like golden hour, and I'm kind of like staring out in the open, and there's these, I don't even know, I think they were like honey locust trees, and they were, I don't know, maybe 12, 15 foot tall. And then it was like tall, thick brush and like some grass bedding and fairly open. I don't know if you've ever been to Kansas, like there's a lot of open ground, and even like the timber track can be fairly like kind of sparsed open a little bit. Mm-hmm. And in the back, I catch this glimpse of movement, and it's him. It's the deer I saw from the road the day before. And he just, it was literally like if you would have saw him, like you were watching an old time hunting show where they just kind of like creep up over the ridge side, and he's just standing there, and like you can see the breath, you can see everything. I mean, I was just in shock, and I was just staring at him like, oh man, that's him. Like, I'm going to be in heaven if this deer comes down here, because the way that the deer were traveling was they would come down around this like oxbow point and cross right in front of this huge cedar tree that I was in. And he comes up the side of the ridge. He literally walks the line exactly how you would want, comes all the way down around this oxbow, stops right in front of my setup, perfect size, just broadside perfectly, right at 23 yards, stands there, looks the opposite way. Like I have no threat. I'm not nervous or anything. I grab my bow, I move my like I got all the time in the world, move my camera over, I'm self-filming it, grab my bow, I pull back, put the bead on him, shoot, an arrow goes right over his back. Couldn't believe it. Couldn't believe it. It was 23 yards. I shouldn't have had a problem with what goes right over his back. He jumps off, not even, I don't know, maybe like 15 seconds later. I'm like kind of just still in shock. And I hear him jump off. He's like behind me, but I can't see him, and he can't see me. Mm-hmm. And so I quick put another arrow in my on the rest, and I didn't really know what to do. I was just kind of in shock. So I grabbed my grunt tube and I just grunt. As soon as I grunt, another deer jumps right out in front of me, just a giant 150, huge Kansas buck. My bow is sitting on the rest, and I'm just staring at him like, man, dude, you really mess this hunt up. Oh. That was day 2. And it was a heart sinker, man. That was devastating, because it was the biggest deer at the time that I had ever had on the hoof in front of me to have an opportunity on. Yeah. And it just human error. I messed up. There's a reason why, which is at the end of the story. But the second or the third day, same spot, the following morning, right at the crack of light, I have a mid 140s 10-point, walk right in, does the same exact thing. I do the same exact thing. I shoot right over his back. It's 23 yards. I'm a pretty good shooter. I can shoot long range, no problem. I've never had an issue shooting. But I end up doing the same thing, and I miss him, and I'm just like, I just can't believe it. I go back to where I'm staying. I put out my target. I'm shooting. I'm getting practicing. Like, I'm hitting where I'm aiming. Like, I don't understand what's happening. So I hunt there again, and that setup, I didn't see a deer. I decided to go to a new location. I had actually put a camera out at this other area just because it looked really well. Well, the night that I had hunted there that I didn't see any deer. The 174 popped up on my camera at that new location, like 3.5 miles away.
Whoa.
And I was like, okay, yeah, I need to make a move right now. So I went to hunt there that morning. So I'm on like day like 4. I get in there super early. There's not really a great spot to set up. I'm kind of in this squirrely tree. I'm saddle hunting, and this is kind of when I first got into saddle hunting. So I'm like kind of still trying to get used to it a little bit. And I'm like 3 foot off the ground. I have a cedar tree like pressed up against my back, and I'm like kind of like hanging on the side, like all crunched up, like super uncomfortable. The sun starts coming up. I hear 2 bucks. They just start going at it. They're just cracking. They're just banging antlers, and
Wow.
I'm kind of in like this bottom like ag field right on the timber edge, and they're up above on the secondary field, which is kind of elevated. And I can hear them. They're just going at it like crazy. I mean, it was just like sounded like fireworks, dude. It was exhilarating. I love that
It is
sound.
loud, dude.
Oh, dude.
Oh my, especially big bucks. Those
Yeah,
big, dense antlers. Oh,
you could just hear them, dude. They were just like, they must have been like just inside the timber or something, because shit was going everywhere. They were
like,
cracking, branches were breaking. It was wild.
It's like someone's hitting like soaked 2x4s together. Like
Yeah,
it sounds like people are breaking pine branches. Like it's just loud, deep pops. Like it's
yeah. It was fantastic. And you know, it was the first time I'd ever been to Kansas. It was the first time I'd ever gone, you know, that far west for whitetails. So, you know, I've never really had any luck, you know, rattling antlers. And I knew that, you know, people use that, you know, as one of the skills there. So I decided to do that. I started rattling antlers. I started snort wheezing.
Hey guys, Rick here from the Mobile Hunter Podcast, and I'm here to tell you about one of our sponsors, Sadie's LLC, Custom Ammunition and Gun Works. Aaron Satterfield and his family have been turning out some awesome game loads that have been putting down deer, waterfowl, and turkey all year long. The Sadie's Fatty, the turkey load that we use, can stop a bird dead in its tracks. Check them out at saddiesllc.com. That's SATTIES LLC.com, or on Facebook at Saddies LLC, and tell them the Mobile Hunter Podcast sent you.
And eventually they stopped, you know, and I heard a deer coming, but it was still like, it was super early, man. I could barely see, you know, it could have been it could be a doe for all I know. I have no idea at that point. And, about 30 minutes goes by. The sun is finally like come up, and I feel like I hear something behind me, but it was so quiet that and the wind was pretty high. I just really couldn't tell. The next thing I know, I look down. I'm only 3 feet off the ground. I look down, and one of these bucks has walked out just underneath me to my left. He's standing right. I mean, I could have grabbed his tail or grabbed his antlers. He was so close, and I was so low to him. I find it impossible that he didn't know I was there. But yeah, like he walked up, he was standing right there, and I was just kind of like froze. If I would have moved at all, like it would have spooked him off. And so I let him walk out. He gets out to about 30 yards. I grab my bow. I go to draw back, and this is where I realized where I had messed up on my entire trip. I go to draw my bow back, and I see that my peep sight on my bow was not tied in at all. And I'm like, all right. And I can see that it's like pushed all the way up to the top, and I'm like looking at it like halfway drawn back. And so I just make the decision just to not even fully draw back and not try to shoot the deer. He's at 30 yards. I missed 2, 2 days prior. And so I decided to let that one go. And and at that time, like I can make as many excuses as I want and blame it on, whoever set up my bow. But it's one of those where it's like, it's your bow. You're the one that's practicing with it. And I didn't catch it. So, maybe it did get tied in. Maybe it got bumped off on the ride there. I have no idea. But yeah, having not having my equipment, fully dialed in on that trip cost me at that time would have been like the best bucks that I had ever had a chance at. So that was Kansas trip number one.
Wow.
Yeah, that was a tough one, man. That first year that I missed, that one threw me in like a buck fever loop for like a couple years. It was pretty hard to like get out of the head on that one.
Yeah, I mean, holy cow. I mean, at least you know that it was not you just in a funk with your shooting, because now you go through the mystery of correcting your entire form and all that crap. Like, at least you diagnose the issue at the end. Like, for me, if I didn't see that like side by side jump that buck in Nebraska this year, I would have been like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Like, I would have been like, I was dead still. My wind was right. Like, I don't know. Now it defers some of the responsibility or of the failure, but it doesn't defer the responsibility of fixing it. So like, you still have the opportunity to go and improve and refine your setups and stuff like that. And I'm sure encountering the deer you did last year, you probably rode into Kansas trip number 2 pretty high confidence, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah, so I did. I was really confident going into Kansas trip number 2. But just to back up real quick, once I realized that like my peep sight wasn't tied in, it just was not in me to even attempt to try to take a shot, because at that point immediately my head was like, okay, this isn't tied in. What else is wrong with my bow? My bow may not even be tuned right. And I'm trying to kill this big game animal. Like, man, I owe it to these animals to make sure that my equipment's legit, to give the best opportunity that I possibly can.
Yeah.
And it's just,
absolutely.
It was devastating, man, because it took a lot for me to take that trip. And it was just, just one of those unfortunate situations, but you push through. But I learned a ton on that trip. I had a lot of big buck encounters. And then, the maintenance of your own equipment, like that's, there's some really key stuff there. So it was a great trip, but not a total failure, but sucked ass, dude. Like it sucked. It sucked. Yeah, and unfortunately, as confident as I was going into Kansas trip number 2, that trip was even worse, which really sucked. That one cost me a lot of money. But yeah, so Kansas trip number 2, I want to say that was 2021, 2022. I actually was headed there with that first trip was just solo. It was by myself. Kansas trip number 2 at that time, me and my wife, Audrey, had already gotten together. And she was actually with me, and we were going to meet up with one of your good buddies, Jake Bush, there. And, at the time, me and Jake, we've been talking back and forth, quite a bit. And I've learned so much from Jake over the last handful of years. He's completely changed my outlook and style and technique on how I hunt. And just a little quick plug there. If you haven't heard of him and you haven't listened to any of his stuff, you should really do that.
Get off one of the rounds you're under.
Ever since I have, for me personally, and how I hunt, I have had what seems like unlimited opportunities on phenomenal deer anywhere I go, which has been a great time.
Jake is one of those guys that like you a lot of people know about, right? And they revere and elevate him, quite a bit. He puts out a lot of really good stuff, and his failure of a season is usually a season that's far better than anyone's most successful season. I know. Just the stuff that he passes on in the area that he's hunting and how difficult it could be is insane. But beyond that, like, you go to meet him and you're just like, is this guy legit? Like, is he how he represents himself? And he's just like one of those people you're like, shit, this guy's better. Like, this guy's way better. Like, he's just way more knowledgeable than he conveys even online. And he's more humble than you would think someone could possibly be with the resume he has. Yeah. And he's just a freaking real as it comes hard worker, good friend, like, which is why you'll never hear me stop bragging about that guy. And he's He's a great dude, but it's just funny meeting someone that's met him as well. That is immediately like, yeah, no, that guy is.
He's literally exactly how you just described.
Yeah,
like
he's so. It baffles
yeah.
me how knowledgeable he is on some of this stuff. Like,
Yeah, he's really got it down, especially for his style, but just in general. Yeah, it's just it's like 3 or 4 levels up, dude. It's it's insane. And if you could take anything from it, I would highly encourage it, because it's definitely helped me for sure.
100%.
So, but yeah, moving on from Jake, if you're listening, hey. But yeah, so no, and I bring up Jake because you know, we were gonna go and hunt the same unit, meet up with him, and I think he had just had his first kid around that time, and so he had an extra early day to be able to go down there, and he was going to go down there and check out his spots or whatever, and try to get in a quick hunt. And so you know, me and Audrey, we head down there. It's the next day, and I say, hey man, where do you want to meet? He's like, oh, we'll just meet at the Walmart parking lot. I was like, oh, okay, cool, we're just getting into town. I pull up, and I'm like, hey, you know, how you doing, Jay? Good to see you again. You know, this is my girlfriend at the time. This is Audrey. And he drops the tailgate, and there's a dead buck right in the back. And I'm like, dude, I was like, is this yours, or like, did you hit this? And he's like, yeah, I shot him last night. I'm like, dude, you haven't even been here for 12 hours. And it's like, I know, man. Like, I just, you know, I set up and I'm tagged out. I'm like, dang, dude, like, how am I ever going to learn anything from this guy when he gets tagged out in less than 12 hours? Oh man, that was fantastic. But then he got to go back and spend, you know, some good time with the family. So that was that was just great in the trip in itself. So that was a positive in the trip. That was great. But the next 3 days ahead after that were just, dude, they were awful. The first 3 days were where me and Audrey decided to go hunt. We didn't see a soul anywhere. We didn't see cars. We didn't see anybody out hunting. We didn't see any of the locals out hunting. So I thought we were going to be in the good stuff. And you know, we saw a good deer sign. We saw what we were looking for. Didn't see a deer for 3 days.
Holy cow.
At the end of the third morning hunt, we're walking back to the truck, and this is where it all goes south. Walking back to the truck, and we're about 25 miles from where we're staying. Get in the truck, start it up, put it in drive, and the truck just doesn't go. Like, the transmission in the truck is just out. Like, I mean, it is out. It is not moving at all. And I'm like, and I knew, I used to work in the auto business, and like, I knew right away. I was like, dang, dude, we are like, this is a very bad situation. Like, this is not good. We're in the middle of nowhere. There's nobody that's going to be able to fix this anywhere close. Like, this is a bad deal. Eventually, I get playing with the gears a little bit, and I'm able to limp the truck back at like 15 miles an hour for like 25 miles. We get back to our like little Airbnb that we were staying in. And I don't know if you ever been out to like Seneca, out in that area?
I have not. I've driven through it, but I haven't like.
So there's nothing there.
Yeah,
there's nothing. There's like one little town. There's nothing out there, and so we finally get back there. It takes me all day to convince and sell a tow truck driver the idea of picking up my truck and towing it back to Kansas City, which was the closest GM dealer that had a transmission that could get one and get it installed in time for me to get back to Tennessee to make it back to work in a week and a half. So it ended up being a $700 tow bill, a whole day of calling around to get a tow truck driver, and to find and sell somebody that drives for Uber to come and grab us and take us to Kansas City, because the tow truck driver wouldn't let us ride with them. Take us to Kansas City. So there's another $150. Then I got to get a rental. So we had to rent and hunt out of a Toyota Corolla. So that was another $600. Transmission's $5,500 plus another $1,000 in tags. So this trip in like 3 days goes from like $1,500 in tags and fuel and food to $8,000, and then hunting out of a Toyota Corolla for the next week and a half.
Oh,
so that was the start of that trip. That was just, it was terrible because it was also like just bad timing, because as soon as we were going to get back to Tennessee, we were going to move to Michigan. So it was just not a good time. So that was like day 3. It was awful, man. It was terrible. But then on the hunting side of things, we decided to stick it out. There was nowhere for us to go. Like, we had the rental car, and so we were just like, we can either just sit here and just boohoo and pout, or we can try to figure out a way to tag a deer and shove him in the back of the trunk of this Corolla. Like, that was like the plan. So then we decided, like, all right, we're gonna get super aggressive, and we're not gonna eat, we're not gonna sleep, we're just gonna hunt, and that's all we're gonna do. And so we did. We ended up going to a new location, and that morning of hunting, we had a couple bucks actually come out. They were fighting another scenario like that. I was able to kind of call one of them off, a smaller 130 style buck, and I was kind of tucked in the back on this little timber ridge, and Audrey was kind of pushed up more up front, probably midway through this timber strip, kind of looking towards like this ag bottom. And the deer starts coming up, and he starts walking up to the edge, and he hits a licking branch right on the edge, but he won't come in. And unfortunately, Audrey just could never get a shot. Like, it was there, like she was ready, like it was gonna be great. I was in the back, I was self-filming, like it was gonna be fantastic, and it just didn't go down. So that was the first encounter we had. But we really liked that area. There was a lot of good activity. In good signs, so we decided to stick it out. And the plan is that we wanted to actually scout the area the next day. So we weren't going to go in super early that morning. We were just going to slip in and kind of like crack a light just a little bit after we knew like deer were kind of bedded down a little bit. So we got in there, and there's like this, to paint a picture, when you access, you kind of cross like this like straw grass like bedding, you go over this creek, and then you walk through a huge cornfield, and then you get to like this rolling hill like timber strip, and then it drops down into like a 20-foot creek bottom like drop, like just straight cliffhanger, and then on the other side of that is a bottom flat like 3-foot tall like CRP and like green ag, and then there's like private on the back, right? And so, but on the backside, as you go down the edge line, there's like this big oxbow that like comes in where there's just a huge bend on the creek, and the ledge is like 30 foot up. Like, it's like straight up, like you're not coming down it, you're not going up it. But I wanted to scout down there because it was so deep, and it looked like there was like this like little mini like bench piece that's like kind of in between. I was like, if a buck's really, really smart, like he made us like hang out there and just keep his eyes up and just watch the ag field, let's go scout down there. So this time it's like 9 a.m. We get down there, and if you've never hunted with a partner that's like on the same page or has the same goals or is at the same level, like it can be really, really difficult. And back then it was like me and Audrey, we were still trying to like figure that out between each other. And so, we just didn't have a really good understanding of the styles we wanted to, join, and, who should make what decision and how do we want to go about it, and that type of thing. And so we were kind of like, we get down in this oxbow and we're kind of going back and forth, like, should we hunt here? Should we not? Like, I don't want to hunt here. I do. All right, let's hunt here. Like, well, I want this tree. Well, I want that tree. Like that, it's like one of those. And so we're sitting there talking, just like me and you are talking right now, like normal level. Like we're not being quiet. We're not being smart about it. And I like lean down. We're like right on the edge of like this creek, this creek like bend. I lean down or like kneel down, set my bow down to like tuck my laces in. And I look over, and as soon as I look over, there was a giant buck jump straight up. Dude, this deer had to be every bit of 180 inches. He was enormous. on the second biggest deer I'd ever seen on the hoof, humongous. And I think he was sleeping because he jumped up like he didn't know what was going on. His antlers hit the sand. He did a front flip forward, falls into like flat face, falls into the like 30-foot ledge, and somehow gets up and over and is out of our lives forever. Like all we had to do was just shut up, use our eyes, and like actually just be quiet and hunt. And what I said would have been true. He was just sitting there right on that little baby bench. He was just sitting right there, and we were just sitting there going back and forth.
Oh,
and it was super unfortunate, man. So it's just, it was just another unfortunate. Like Kansas has gotten my name a couple times, and I have not been back. I've wanted to go back. I keep putting on my list, and I'm terrified to go back because I don't know if I can handle another just beat down like that, man. Like that was that one was rough, dude. Like that one, even talking about it gets me emotional because it was just like it was one of those trips where it's like I got done. I just like it was like, man, do I even need to be bow hunting? Like this is terrible. Yeah, it was awful.
No, I gotcha. I mean, part of me's really screaming, get back after it, man. Like you've had some crazy encounters there. You can't rely on that truck stuff ever happening again, and like that's gonna leave a sour taste in your mouth no matter what happens on the trip, right? But like I think you're onto some monsters every single time you're in Kansas. And I'd love to see you go back there and get your revenge on it. I had a similar thing happen to that last story this last week in Nebraska. I had a deer that in hindsight probably would have been like mid to upper 40s. It's not a 180 plus, but like mid to upper 40s and full velvet, dream buck for me. And I had seen him from 1.1 miles away, watched him disappear behind a hill, and figured he went into a shaded cut and bedded, and he didn't come out from behind the hill. So I do this giant stalk, and he was with two subordinate bucks that bedded separately, and I watched them lay down. And I make it the 1.1 miles and J hook around to get the wind in my favor. And I'm looking for this deer in this shaded cut, and I creep over the edge, and he's not down there. And I'm like, what? Like, why would he not be here? And every other hillside's completely lit up in sunlight. And so I crest over that edge, and right as I get to the other side, I see the subordinate buck stand up at 60. And I'm like, or 66 yards. And I'm like, all right, he's bedded with them. It's just a minute before he stands, right? So I close to 60, which is I'm comfortable there. And then I put this tree between them and I and worked to the other side while on an angle to get within 40. And I was at 40, and I was like, just ready for him to stand up. I'm just taking small steps and ready to draw. And he jumps up 20 yards to my right in the wide open sunlight. And I have video on a secondary camera and my GoPro of him just looking at me. And I could have just creeped over that hill, and if I would have took binos and peered through the grass and not worried about the subordinate bucks, I would have shot him. But man, when you walk for 1.1 miles to get there, you think that something must have happened in between when you last saw that deer disappear behind a hill and where he is now. And that's one of those painful lessons you just learn with experience. Like it's tough, but honestly, it just motivates me to kind of get back after it even more. Like it's tragic and it makes you really sad, but like at the same time, it's like you got to be excited about some portion of it. Like matters. I got within range of a dream.
100%. Like the fact, like they're in, like these are and you reminded me of another thing. We had another encounter on that trip, and I'll talk about that in a second. But it's the stuff I'm talking about like really sucks. Like none of it sounds positive. It all sounds like, oh, poor, woe is me type of deal. But like, it's real hunting. Like this stuff happens to hundreds and thousands of hunters every single year. But nobody ever talks about it. And to be honest, like now that we're like just talking about the bad stuff, it's 10 times harder talking about this stuff than it is the good stuff. But it's funny that you mentioned that the deer was just looking at you. I forgot on that same trip after that encounter, I had chalked up that place. I was listen, we've had 2 encounters here. Yes, there's deer here. you should never go find deer. You should never leave deer to go find deer type of deal. I said, but that was the buck that we were probably after, and I don't see him coming back here within the next like 2 days. We got 2 days left. He's probably not going to be here where we can be. Probably be just out of reach.
And that buck humiliated himself, man. He can't return there. He face planted in the sand. He's going to be embarrassed if he shows up again, you know?
Yeah, and I was embarrassed to go back. So I was like, yeah, part ways, dude. Like, I'll see you next time I come back, or whoever else takes your throne. There was another location I had my eye on. It was just like a triple backup plan type of deal, and it was just this super small, extreme little pinch point that you can barely see on a map. But the way that the topography laid, I knew that bucks would be using it, that they're going to come through there. It may not be every single day. It may be like once or twice a week. So it was kind of like a Hail Mary run. But I figured we'd take a stab at it. We had 2 days left. The first night we hunted, didn't see a deer. And then it was the very last night. We're set up right in the middle of this little transition between 3 different farms, and we're kind of tucked in like this like wonky cottonwood, and it's kind of overseeing some like high stem count timber, but it's open enough to get a shot in there. And there was actually like a little open scrape as well. And so, we stuck it out, and we're getting close to like the very end of light. And dude, there was maybe like a minute and a half left of light. And I look over and I'm looking at Audrey, and she's looking at me. I could tell that she's just like, that it wasn't just her. Like, we were just beat down, dude. Like, we were just beat down, where it's just like, I'm looking at her, she's looking at me, and I kind of give her the, are you ready? And she looks at me and gives me the nod, and I'm like, all right, we're just gonna call it. It's over. There's a minute left, like up in light, so it's like almost dark. So she lowers her bow down, and as soon as her bow hits the ground, I'm grabbing my bow and I'm lowering it down. I got camera gear and stuff, so I'm doing that, and I lower my as soon as my bow hits the ground, dude. It was instantaneous. Massive crashing comes in, split second, like maybe a half a second in time. Big body buck, stops broadside, 12 yards right in the scrape. Perfect shot. And my bow is on the ground.
Oh my God.
And Audrey's looking at me like she still thinks I have my bow up. That's how dark it is. And we're like 15 feet from each other in separate trees. And I'm like, I don't have my bow. I don't have my bow's on the ground. So as soon as he looks away, I like quick yank my bow up really fast. And by the time I had it, he was already 30 yards out, standing behind a tree, and it was over. And that was one of those lessons where it's like, dude, you're so close. Like, the decisions you're making are perfect. But I'm never going to make that mistake again. So like, that's where some of those wins are, right? You gotta push through, man. It's just, it's sucky, but you gotta push through. So yeah, that was the other encounter there. But
yeah, I think hunting gives you a deep appreciation for life in general. And I've always attributed the rush you get and the perspective it gives you to, like, you go all frickin' season sometimes just grueling, grinding, spending hundreds of hours and miles in the preseason, the postseason, scouting and preparing and doing all this stuff, and then you hunt over and over and over again, and you see stuff you do want to shoot and you can't get an opportunity. You see stuff that you don't want to shoot and you pass on it, and you just go over and over and over again, and then you come to the last couple hours of your suffering. We'll call it suffering. I think it's a blessing too, but like, you come to like the last few hours of this grueling season, and in 15 seconds that deer comes in, you shoot it and it's dead. And it's like how much of an appreciation does that give you for how temporary life is than anything else? Like, I can't think of another thing that would, besides like a loved one dying, like that reminds me that everything that you worry about and everything that you go through is just so temporary, and it could all be taken from you in a matter of 10 seconds.
Yeah.
And then there might be nothing you can do about it. And that's not the reason that to lessen suffering at the time, to lessen the hurt you have for what you're going through.
Sure.
But it certainly gives you more to be thankful for in the moments that lead up to it, for sure.
Yeah, man. It just and that just, it's just another backing to understand that like the decisions that you make, whether it's hunting or life or, with work or whatever you're doing, like each decision you make has an outcome and some form of consequence. And it only takes a split second to make the wrong decision and have a really bad outcome, or to have a really positive outcome. Like we're talking a matter of like literally maybe 7 to 10 second difference, where if I just scratched my cheek or something instead of putting my bow down, then like maybe my bow would have been up and I would have had a chance. And like then I would have stuck him and it would have been over. Maybe I would have missed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
Anything could happen. It's just it just happens really fast, man. So
yeah, it does, man. That's a great lesson and two great stories. I'm gonna pull an audible on you here.
Sure.
I know we had a Tennessee story, but I want you to kind of let's get you a micro form of redemption here. The same way that you told it to me before this podcast, I want you to tell that story about your friend's situation in Illinois.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, the story with a buddy of mine that was hunting in Southern Illinois. So that's one of my, I love that story so much. I cherish that story. I cherish the memory. Because me and this person, we don't get to talk as much as we used to, especially now that I have a newborn. And, he has other things going on, like my work's ramping up, the season's coming. Like we just don't get to chat as much. We still chat, we still message. We don't even live that far from each other. But the biggest reason why I cherish this story is just because, there's a lot of fluff in this industry, and we kind of talked a little bit about that in the beginning. There's a lot of fluff in the industry. There's a lot of people that are they're in it for a lot of wrong reasons, and you have to just be really committed to your own path and yourself. And if you stay genuine, then you can really never go wrong. It doesn't matter that you don't hit the tag, or it doesn't matter that you're not tagging the same caliber as anybody else. But if you put out good karma, then good opportunity and good karma is going to come back to you. And giving support to people that very lightly, but are into the same thing, can really build bonds and relationships for a very, very long time. So that's kind of why I cherish that story. But something
you might just to cut you off real quick, but something you might enjoy. I've often heard that like the difference between burnout and longevity is wholeheartedness. And I feel like the people that are wholehearted and doing it for the right reasons are the ones that don't get burnt out and enjoy their desire and their passion for a long time. The ones that are doing it for maybe the wrong ones and aren't wholehearted will receive that burnout. And that, I feel like that really perfectly echoes the points that you were all just going through there.
Yeah, for sure. 100%. Yeah, this gentleman we had met through social. He had reached out to me and asked if I wanted to go scouting. We lived in roughly the same area. We're kind of in some of the same similar parts. We actually hunt two different areas, but we do have some of the same style, and so he asked me to scout. So we linked up. We did some scouting together. Had a great conversation, just good company. He was somebody that, I felt like I could bounce ideas off of. He was asking me a ton of questions, on scrape setups, and we were just learning stuff from each other, just left and right. And so I knew right off the bat that he was a good dude. And so that was just going to make sure that we always stayed in touch. And after that, we hung out one more time. We went and shot bows together. But then the season came around and we kind of lost touch a little bit. And, all of a sudden I got a call. I got a call from him, and he says, man, like, Just want to see what you're up to, man. I'm kind of feeling burnt out. I'm in Southern Illinois. It's been raining on and off all day. Like, he's not here. Like, it's not happening. And I had remembered telling him, like, man, you're already there. There's only a couple hours left. Like, just hang out. And say, all right, I'll think about it, but I'm probably gonna head back, type of deal. And I may be getting this a little bit wrong, word for word, so don't quote me.
No, don't worry. Yeah.
Especially if he's listening, he'll let me know.
It's a deer camp story. You're liable to.
No, yeah. That's funny. Yeah, no. So if I remember it right, yeah, he had said, like, no, I'm probably, I don't know, I'll think about it, but I'm probably gonna pack up. I was like, all right, man, I think you should just stick it out. And he's like, all right, I'll keep you posted. I'm like, all right, cool. So we get off the phone. I remember sending him a text like, dude, I just looked at the weather, like the rain's gonna stop, like just hang out. And if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. But then at least you know, and you can come back after that. There's no difference. You're already gonna be getting home after dark. He's like, all right, man, I'm gonna stick it out. Literally, I want to say it was like at most like 15, 20 minutes later, I get a call. And he's like, dude, he's got the shaking voice on him. And he's like, dude, he did exactly what I thought he was going to do. He came right under my stand. He stopped, broadside, gave me the perfect shot. And I shot him. I think I shot him perfect. And I was like, did you hear him crash? He's like, no, I didn't hear him crash, man. But I'm pretty sure I saw him go down. And I'm like, all right, well, is it the one? And he's like, dude, it's the one. And I said, okay. I said, well, do you see blood? And he's like, Vince, I'm colorblind. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I was like, there's no way you're looking for that deer. I said, if you're not sure that he went down, like, don't even go. Like, just wait. Either call a dog or like, I'll come out there. He's like, no, like, I'm just gonna start looking. I said, listen, I'm gonna get in the truck right now. And I'm going to drive. Me and Audrey are going to drive. We're going to grab the camera gear. We're going to drive all the way down to Southern Illinois. He's like, you'll do that. I said, yep, we're going to come right now. He's like, all right, I'll wait for you. So we get all the way down there. And somehow Matt had already located the deer before we had got there. But it didn't matter. Like, we were still going because I knew that Matt was a really good guy. And I knew that there was no way that he was going to get this deer out of there. And for those of you that don't know who I'm talking about Matt Lear, who's the host of the Mobile Hunters Dojo podcast. And so, yeah, me and my wife, Audrey, we drove, whatever, it's like 5 or 6 hours or whatever to Southern Illinois. And we got there at like 11 at night. And I don't think we got out of the woods with that deer until it was like almost 4 a.m. And, wow. My wife, she was, pregnant at the time. Pitch black, it was terrible. We were dragging this deer on a deer cart through this dried up creek bottom, up the bank, through like 6 foot tall nettles. It was awful, dude. Even with the deer cart, it was one of the worst drags I've ever been a part of. The deer was enormous, but it was, it was worth every single second. And yeah, man, I cherish that one forever. That was phenomenal. I'm glad that I was able to, or fortunate enough to be able to have the time to make that trip for him so that he could have that lifetime memory, man.
Yeah, dude, that's freaking awesome. I'm going to share a screen here, but my computer is not going to let me click on it. But right here is a post that you got right here of you, and I believe this is the buck that we're recovering there. But
we were dying.
I bet. I've been a part of some of those, man.
I was looking at him like, "Are you okay?" And he's looking at me like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "I don't know." He's like, "I don't know either."
You just look back at that deer and you're like, "We're good."
Dude, we would roll and drag that car. That deer was so heavy that the wheels would just get buried in the sand, and we would drag him for like 30 feet and then have to stop for like 30 minutes, dude. It was terrible. It was awful.
Yeah.
But
I would click through that post and there's some more pictures that kind of resonate that, but I'm not logged in on my computer, so I can't. Like, it'll force me to log in and it throws a pop-up on there, so can't show the rest, but dude, that's just one of those things you look back like, what an awesome story, and like what a great experience to give you perspective on the suffering you go through. And like that's just like, I feel like when I kill a deer and I get to have friends be a part of it, my friends do, and I get to be a part of it, like I just never regret that suffering. That's just something that I'm just like so happy and blessed to have gone through that with them.
Yeah, and like one of the other things too is like I got Matt hostage now. So as soon as I'm saving it for, you know, that the hopefully the one that gets tagged this year. And I hope it's just super late, so I get to call him and he has to do the same exact thing, because that'd be a hell of a story. But yeah, a lot of my hunter friends, like a lot of them are in Tennessee, a lot of them are spread out all over the place, so I don't get to see them very much. And but Matt's one that's relatively close, and so hopefully I can repay the favor. So
dude, that
was a crazy one, man. I think about that deer often, actually. But
that is freaking awesome, man. That is honestly, we didn't plan to have redemption at the end of this
all right.
podcast today, but I feel like that is such a good place. This is my second of 3 podcasts today, so I'm gonna get ready in a little bit to go on another one. But dude, I feel like that's just such a great like lesson in selflessness and hard work, and that you may be rewarded in fashions that you don't necessarily see as what you pictured, right? Like is what you pray for, really. And it seems like, you know, you busted it for Matt, and I can't imagine him getting that deer out solo. It probably would have killed him.
It would. I'm not going to say it's impossible, but I don't know anybody personally, considering the size of the deer and the topography that was there, that would have been able to physically just drag the whole deer out. Like he would have had to be quartered
or something, or like didn't you say the deer was like 240 or like?
Yeah, dude, he was a giant. Like it was the biggest bodied deer that I had ever. The only other deer that I had ever seen that had the body size of that deer was that very first deer I missed the very first time I went to Kansas, that 174. And I'll send you the picture of the rack. But that was the only other deer I'd ever seen of that, like just the body. I mean, it was incredible. It took 3 of us to like just hold him open just so that he could get field dressed. He was humongous.
Yeah. No, I believe it, man.
Yeah, there's just no way.
As far as that drag out, like it doesn't also help that he's got 40 pounds of antlers on his head.
No kidding. Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, that was yeah, that's funny.
Dude, I feel like I've gotten to know you a bit better throughout this podcast, and that's what I really love about this series is like it's just genuine conversations that if I called you up and wanted to know a bit about your life, like these are the conversations we'd have anyways. And it's just like it's a no holds barred, like we're gonna talk how we would at a deer camp, and it makes me want to share deer camp with a lot of people, especially if you got Matt hostage, you know, then I can sit on the side if we ever share camp and let him kind of take the rails in the dragging. But dude, yeah, I mean, I encourage everyone to, if they haven't already, begin to follow your story and the stuff that you have going on. Again, Chasing Public is the YouTube, and Instagram. I know you got Vince Battiata, and you've also got Chasing Public too. Are they separate?
Vince Battiata is just my Facebook, but yeah, I mean, most of my content you're just gonna find on Instagram. I try to just keep it in this single place. Mm-hmm. I have so much video content that I'd like to have time to put together to update the YouTube. I haven't put stuff on there in so long, man, but it's just time consuming. I'm finding time to edit, man. I love editing so much, and don't get the time to be able to do it. But I try to film all my hunts though. It's all stockpiled. Yeah. But no, all my content will be there on Instagram.
No, I feel that, man, and honestly, I encourage people to follow you more so to see the examples that you've given in this podcast here, and to just support someone. You know, obviously they're not like, it's not like they're donating to you or anything like that, but like to show that you appreciate.
You want to write me a check, dude? Just write me a check.
Right. Well, you can do that. I mean, Venmo in the bio. I'm just kidding, but I'm more so saying like to show that you care about people that are doing this for the right reasons, and that, you know, the people I enjoy being around at least are the ones that care about these kind of stories and the kind of people that persevere through this stuff and do things out of the passion and the wholeheartedness that they hold within themselves, rather than some kind of chase and journey and something they want to gain, you know, from a monetary or status symbol perspective. And that's like the, just in my time talking to you and the conversations we've had, from what I've gathered, you're just the opposite of that. And I really, really enjoy that about you. And personally, I'm excited to get to know you a lot better. You're not that far from me. So if you ever want to hop over to Wisconsin, you know, I got a bed and some deer meat that you can enjoy when you're here. And you're just the kind of person that I want to get to know better and hopefully be able to share some camp with sometime.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. Yeah. The feeling's mutual. 100%.
I appreciate that, man.
It's been a real pleasure, and yeah, I know we only got through like half of it. I'm sure we can.
Well, we're gonna have you on again for sure. I think that I really, because your other stories is like you're gonna get beat up even further in these other stories.
Yeah, dude.
But I think that like I want that personal redemption at the end. Like I want to see. I don't know what buck you're after, but I want to see the buck you're after get put down, and I want to see Matt come on and tell a story about his suffering, dragging that deer out with you. You know, and I want to have that full arc too, because man, you're a guy that's been so close to freaking giants over and over again.
We only cover like I am not kidding. I'll give you the here's the whole summary. Just in the last 3 years, I have encountered and had opportunities on bucks that have been on Michigan public land. So the last 3 years, just in the last 3 years, Michigan public land, I've encountered and had opportunities on bucks between 140, 150, and 160. 7 of them, and I personally have messed up the opportunity, whether that was not being fast enough, whether that was buck fever or something else. There was always something that caused it to not be capitalized on. I am millimeters away from putting down. Oh gosh, dude! I get the chills. Yeah, I get the chills, but it's one of those things, man. It is what it is.
Yeah, so. I'm really excited to see that pay off for you, man, and just, gosh, yeah, you're just so due. You're just so due, and you're deserving. And man, I can't wait to have you back on to talk about that. And you know, we'll preface it with all the other things that have happened to you throughout the years, but it's just like, man, I feel like this is the start of a pretty good friendship here, and I really I don't think I've really said that much to anyone that I've had on yet. I just had a guy on named Drake that I've gotten to know, and I would consider him friends already, and I echoed that sentiment to him. But I feel like when you find someone that's like-minded and that works hard and enjoys the same things as you do, it's pretty important to take hold of that while it's there, because you don't really come around that pretty often. So
yeah, man, I know. I tried. Me and Chris, we talked a little bit at the show, or a few times at the show in Kalamazoo, and realized there's a lot of like-minded stuff there as well, and trying to figure out if we can find some time to do some scouting in this next coming season. So we might have to do a collective effort there, something like that.
For sure. I'm going to have those guys up to Wisconsin, potentially not this season, but maybe next season. So if you want to get in on that and you want to scout, I've done a lot of hunting in western Wisconsin, and I've done a lot of hunting in southeastern Wisconsin. So if you want to do anywhere and want a starting point, I'll come with you, and we can romp around either the old stomping grounds or the current ones. And I just think that'd be a blast, man. That's what I'm in it for, is the people and the experience. So
sweet, dude. I love it.
Dude, well, thank you so much for being on here. I hope you guys really enjoyed this episode. Again, go follow Vince, Chasing Public, or Vince Battiata on Facebook, and just show some support in general to the people that, you know, are busting their balls, because when they succeed, we all know that people are going to want to hop on the train and say, "Hey, I knew you all along." So show us some support, some support beforehand and be what we call a real one. And man, be invested in this journey, Vince, because I'm so excited to see people that deserve it get their due here. So
oh yeah, appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's podcast. The best way you can support the podcast is by sharing online and with your buddies at Deer Camp. Please follow us on Facebook and Instagram and leave us a 5-star review.